Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Komal, moderator for this conference call. Before we begin with, I would like to extend my warm welcome for joining us today for the discussion on the financial results for quarter 4 and financial year 2021 and addressing investors and analyst queries. On board, we have with us today Mr. Vineet Agarwal, Managing Director, TCI, and Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Group CFO. At this moment, all participants are in listen only mode. Later, we will conduct the question and answer session. At that time, if any participant has any question, they can use the raise hand feature in Zoom call and wait for his and her turn to ask a question. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I will now request Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Group CFO, to embark on this meeting. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Naina. Good evening to all of you again. Uh, I would like to request Mr. Vineet Agarwal, Managing Director TCI, to give some opening remark and start the earning presentation. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Komal. Thank you, Ashish. Uh, I do hope all of you are safe and are doing well in this tough times right now. We are all with you. So we've all gone through a lot of pain in the last few months. So we empathize with you. And again, thank you so much for being present today in this earnings presentation call. If you can go forward, please. So this year has been a very challenging year. However, the company has really come out with exceptional performance. This is dedicated to our team who have really worked very hard across the country, across various conditions to really bring about this kind of performance. So I would like to again commend the team and thank them for this spectacular performance that we've had. In terms of the group overview, you are aware of this, so I'm not going to repeat this more and more. You've already seen, many of you have seen this. The group has three companies that are listed: TCI, TCI Express, and TCI Developers. And together, all three companies now have a market cap of about 8,000 odd crores. Next slide, please. I would like to talk a little bit about what's happening with the industry as a whole. And there are several growth drivers for the industry. Clearly, consumer-driven growth is very obvious with the kind of pressure that we are seeing in terms of movement towards online shopping. The fact that customers are wanting instant gratification versus customers looking for longer periods of in terms of delay, in terms of getting what they want. And people are putting a lot of pressure on supply chains also in the country. This is going to have a major impact in the long term. The other impact is from our customers' perspective. They are looking to increase their outsourcing. Clearly, their demand for technology and the demand for certain things, like, for example, during this pandemic, more warehouses has increased. And they're also looking for multimodal solutions. So the pandemic has also had quite a good change towards customer orientation towards logistics as well. And I think supply chains have become a buzzword today, whether you take it from the company perspective or from the medical fraternity perspective. From all perspectives, supply chains have become a very important, not just a word, more in terms of the action that's happening here. From an industry perspective, the industry is still very fragmented. Consolidation is still very low. There are lots of positive things that are happening, especially with the growth of industry, growth of GDP. We'll see that the industry will grow as fast as possible at that space as well. And things like the national logistics policy is also clearly hinting that logistics is going to be very critical for a nation like ours. where we have a higher cost of logistics cost as a percentage to GDP. The government is also introduced and has been introducing several measures. Clearly, GST, e-way bill, etc. is all pushing formalization. There is, of course, a lot of infrastructure push that is there from the MMLPs, the DFC, etc. And of course, the new schemes around boosting domestic supply chains, specifically with many companies looking for a China Plus One strategy. PLI and Atmanirbhar Bharat are all going to create a very, very robust environment for logistics industry in the times to come. Next, please. So, embarking on a company strategy, we would like to essentially be India's leading integrated multimodal logistics service provider. And the idea here is to provide a whole range of services that we have through various methods and various products that we have across the company, and essentially align ourselves more and more with what the customer wants. Our principle in our business is something that we call as CORE, CORE, which is customer focus, ownership, responsiveness, and empathy. And we want to use that, the value system that we have in creating an impetus for customers as well. So in terms of, that's the broad strategy. I'll talk about some of the USPs that we've been able to create in the last several decades. And some of these are, these, but these are very specific in terms of understanding how a company is looking at growth in the logistics market. Next, please. So we are amongst the only company in the country which has this huge range of customized services that we provide, from all kinds of modes of transport to all kinds of specific and specialized services. We have a very strong vendor ecosystem. We can provide a single window solution with a control tower, and also build in operational efficiencies for customers. We service all the major verticals in the country. We also, in some cases, handle very large accounts for many of these verticals that you see. And overall, the range of services has helped us to really build several large and dedicated accounts with our customers. We have several accounts that are more than 10 crores plus, 50 crore plus, or 100 crore plus in terms of business that we do with them on a yearly basis. So we are focused on in terms of the large customers, but we are also focused in terms of providing even the MSMEs all kinds of services under one single roof. Next, please. An example of this is a customer where I cannot name it specifically, but we've been providing a large range of services to them, to this particular group in India. And from multimodal services where we've been using, providing them chemical logistics, using ISO tanks, which are very specialized ISO tanks. Now this is moving not just by rail, but by road as well. We handle some of their, almost all their large volume in terms of the chemicals. We run their food, some of the food processing business logistics, which includes warehousing as well as using multi-temperature vehicles. We also have use our freight business for some kind of FTL and LTL services where they need constantly. And all of these are run through a key account management system with a single window solution for them, with a control tower kind of a scenario. All the operations are at very high quality levels, as well as very high KPI and SLA levels. Because some of these, this particular industry that the customer is part of is a process industry, and they really cannot look at any kind of delays in terms of their production, and also are looking to typically sometimes get economies of scale and better cost structure. So we have been able to help them in the last several years in building a very, very comprehensive solution across all their businesses. There are many such case studies. I just wanted to highlight one specific here, just to an idea of how we've been able to move from design to execution for many of these customers. The other thing that we have is a strong multimodal network. Again, this is all in-house. So the capacity that we've been able to create in the last decade or so around this has been quite large. So, for example, if you start in a clockwise direction, we've moved more than close to 2 lakh TUs in the last year. And this is across all modes of transport, be it sea, road, as well as rail. We were amongst the only company, other than the government companies, that has moved more than 1,300 trains last year. So that's more than almost 4 trains a day. And these are full rakes that we have moved last financial year. As you know, we have 6 ships and the output of 10,000 trucks at any given time. With our own, we also have our own 3 AFTO rakes as well for movement of auto. So we've been able to build a very strong multimodal network across the country using ICDs of our joint venture partners, as well as many other ICDs that are easily available. We've seen that customers are now looking more and more for these solutions because they feel that can they use a different mode of transport other than road to not just bring down their cost, but also provide green logistics to their own entities. So it has been a great experience, and we'll constantly update you on what's been happening in the last few years in this as we build this further. Again, the organization with its 62 years has been very strong in terms of incubating businesses. You've seen that the company had started many other entities which were demerged in the late 90s, and subsequently we had the express business that got demerged, our developers business got demerged, and simultaneously internally you've seen we've grown the supply chain solutions business, the seaways business, the cold chain business. All of these essentially indicate towards a high level of innovation that we bring towards customer or based on customer orientation. We are constantly on the vigil as to what are customers looking for, what are the potential growth areas. Now, there are several that we've identified in the next few years that are potential high growth opportunities. And you would see that these also align very much with what's happening in the marketplace as well. I'll start with the chemical and the pharma side. We know that the disruption with China, as well as the fact that more and more companies want to be positioned here with the China Plus One strategy, and the fact that chemical industry in India is starting to mature in terms of the supply chains, we've seen a great opportunity there. We've built some assets of our own with ISO tanks, gas tankers, and so on. And we've also been positioned with and got very high quality certification through Responsible Care, ITCO, PESO, and other licenses as well. So we're very compliant and use our multimodal network very efficiently to really service the specific industry. In this pandemic, we've seen the agri plus value chain has really taken off because of the fact that consumption has not come down. This is a sector that we have been doing a lot of work, but now we feel there is a lot more opportunity to look at the entire value chain from seeds and fertilizer to the final product that needs to move. And again, we've used multimodal here quite a lot during the pandemic. In the first wave, we were moving a lot of food grains, whether it was grain or chana and other items across the country for using our rail network as well as a sea network. We've been able to work with tractor companies a lot in the last year, providing them spare parts, yard management, etc. We've been working on the finished food products as well, movement of edible oil and so on. So again, when we looked at the supply chain, the value chain for the agriculture sector, we saw that it is massive and the scope is massive, and we have a good orientation towards it. The other sector, you've already seen our potential in terms of the way that we've handled e-commerce with our fulfillment centers, as well as we are running extremely high Six Sigma level quality activities in some of our warehouses, which include value-added services as well. So this sector will also continuously keep growing. Cold chain business has now started to mature in the country. We are feeling that the movement is now towards cost, from cost to quality more and more. And also we've seen that food delivery and other such areas have grown quite a lot during this pandemic as well. And we've also established a joint venture that has happened in the last few months, where we have Mitsui and company that has come in with a 20% stake into our cold chain subsidiary. So we've been able to build a good traction with some excellent customers. We've also started vaccine movements here. So the potential here is also quite massive as we look at it. The one very interesting area is the neighboring countries. We've seen that not just the BBIN, which is Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, but the CMLVs, which is the Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, all of these countries, the linkages are also increasing as we see with the government. Government is also investing into a lot of projects there. So we see the likes of L&Ts and Kalpatrus of the world who are going to these neighboring countries and also building projects there. We have our own subsidiaries in Nepal, Bangladesh, and also underway in the process underway in Sri Lanka. And we have offices in all the major border of these, so Nepal border or the Bangladesh border. The other countries we are in the process of building slowly. Our ships do go to Myanmar and are bringing in pulses as we speak. So the potential in this with multimodal, again, we moved several rigs to Bangladesh also, is quite immense going forward. Next, please. Last but not the least, in terms of our USPs, our positioning from technology perspective. We are very strong in terms of technology with our own systems. So from almost all our operations are completely on, not just on the cloud, but also on mobile. We have a central monitoring system with a logistics control tower, where we are, for example, getting GPS data from more than 25 odd GPS providers through APIs. We have a digital transformation team in place. They're working on several areas around RPA, data analytics, etc. We are doing work around ML, not yet on AI, but certainly ML related work or business intelligence tools are being used quite a lot. Our in-house team is extremely strong and has built capabilities in the last several decades. We also have deep customer relationships management systems through portals and apps, as well as for suppliers. So it's a complete holistic approach to technology that we've been using. I think we have to also think about the evolution of technology in the supply chain business. I think sometimes we get overawed by the fact that customers, if you are getting a product, let's say from Zomato, and you're seeing that every 10 minutes where the status is, B2B customers don't necessarily want that kind of a status update. They want to know exceptional updates. That is there a problem with any shipment that has happened? And once the shipment reaches, where has it reached properly? So the approach that we have is a little different. The tracking that we do is hygiene, but the tracking is such that it is not. It is part of the customer's interface that they are dealing with, rather than in your face all the time. So that we've seen is a good response. The response that we brought from customers has been much better. And obviously, there's a lot of things that we can do here because technology is evolving very, very fast. Next, please. In terms of the highlights for this financial year, as you know that Q1 was very weak with the lockdowns in April and May, but the company bounced back in the last 3 quarters, and the last quarter was a record quarter for us. And as you can see, the consolidated revenues grew by almost 34%. The cash flow that we have has been quite good in the last year. We've been able to compress our receivable cycle, as well as we've been able to get some income tax refunds and dividend inflow, which has helped us to actually reduce our borrowings substantially, as well as we have a lot of cash still available on our books out of the limits. So access to limits is still very high, and only 32% of the limits have been really utilized in the end of the financial year. Our pipeline is very robust with the customer connects that we made in the last year. As you know, we made calls to several lakh customers in the first quarter itself, so that we are able to connect with them and ask them how they were doing. And as you have seen that our integrated play has really shown that it is effective, and we are very strong in terms of handling any kind of issues that come up, whether it is the cycles that come from economic cycles, whether the pandemic or any such change in the environment or any kind of macro shocks that happen, we are quite able to handle it. Now I'll go to division specific results. This is the freight business. So the three main businesses of ours: freight, supply chain, and seaways. I'll talk a little bit about their industry segment and where we are positioned. So as an industry, you know that the freight business is a lot of it is fragmented, but the customer needs are changing. They are wanting both FTL and LTL, mostly moving towards an anywhere to anywhere kind of a model. And that's where we have the strength, and we've been able to provide a key account management system to many of them as well. Next, please. So in terms of our strengths, this is our bread and butter in terms of when we started this company. We service from Leh to Nagarcoil. We have our own offices. The strategic hubs are there. We provide very specific on-demand FLC kind of products for safe transportation, and our LTL business is also picked up. So there are customers who want all kinds of solutions. So there is one specific customer who says that I have 15 plants where I need to move FTL and LTL from those plants to project sites. Plus, I need you to pick up material from my third-party vendors who are who I get my job work done, and I want you to build all of them into a single location. So again, this is quite complex, but we do such services, and we have CAMs that manage these, including providing e-invoicing and a single control tower as well. The business did quite well in last quarter. As you know, Q4 FY20, that is March 20, the business was hit hard because the lockdown started around the 22nd, 23rd of March. But this year we've been able to claw back quite rapidly and have been able to reach up to almost the same levels as last year in terms of our revenues. It is short by about 8%, but in terms of the margin structure, it's almost the same levels, as well as the ROC is also improved. In the first 2 quarters of the last financial year, we were facing challenges with MSMEs, and our LTL business had trouble picking up. But we've seen that has picked up in Q4 and did fairly well. Our target towards getting to 40% in the next 2 to 3 years is in place, and we will get there with the kind of efforts that we put in terms of marketing, as well as building the necessary hub infrastructure. Next, please. You know about the supply chain industry in general. It is quite a fast-growing industry and has a lot of potential. There are, of course, elements of supply chain. A lot of people think of supply chain only as having warehouses. It is much more broader than that. The supply chain industry typically covers the complete gamut of services that we provide to a customer, with from conceptualizing to network design to really execution. And that kind of capabilities that we have are also quite unique here. There is a lot of demand here in terms of customer expectations, and there has been no customer that we have failed in the last several decades of running this business. Our supply chain business, as you know, has a large portion of the auto-related segments. So there is auto, there is the in the consumer auto business, the industrial auto business, and then the agri-auto business. So all of these three areas have been quite robust, and we are the only company that really runs a complete multimodal network when it comes to outbound logistics for finished vehicles in the country. These are some of the yards that we have. We, of course, you are aware of the large warehousing footprint also that we have in the country, where we run warehouses for FMCG, consumer durables, e-commerce fulfillment centers, all through a combination of full-fledged, full suite of services through a control tower kind of a setup. So the business grew at 40% in the last quarter. This is because of a lot of movement that happened, not just in the auto, but in all segments. The margins also grew, doubled in the last quarter. The last year, the full financial year, we grew marginally, but EBITDA is closer to about 100 crores for this business. And ROCE has crept up a little bit, but essentially capital increased because we added some rakes, the 2 rakes that have already come in, and a third rake is under plan. So business has started to pick up here as well. In terms of the storage area under management, we have the 12 million square feet, which translates to about 112 cubic feet of space. Now, there are some warehouses that are at ground level, which means that about storage about 6-7 feet, and there are lots of warehouses which go G plus 6, G plus 7 levels. So this is a rough calculation in terms of what we've done in terms of cubic feet capacity usage that we've had. One interesting thing that we also have is 250 acres of land that is under yards that we are managing today. Again, this is very, very unique. And these some of these yards are multi-customer yards, where we do all kinds of activities, from storing the finished products for the auto industry to doing pre-delivery inspection, cleaning, invoicing, and final last mile delivery also from these yards. So again, a unique strategy has been put in place from the auto perspective, where we are not just looking at inbound logistics, but also the outbound logistics very strategically, and creating a moat, sort of a protection, like a fortress around the business, so that we are able to really get a maximum out of that auto business. You also know that we have only less than 10% market share in the automotive logistics. So the ability for us to grow in this business is just massive as this business, auto supply chains grow and mature in the country. The next business, the Seaways business. Shipping, coastal shipping is only 6% of the transportation modal mix today in the country. The potential again here is quite massive, and we are seeing customers wanting to use more and more seaways to not just reduce costs, but also move towards green logistics. A lot of the coastal areas will see increase in manufacturing facilities as well, with SEZs, etc., coming up. And of course, the neighboring countries, the support that we can provide using the coastal shipping network as well. So it has been a great supplement to our overall business, and clearly the potential here is quite massive. Our own business has now 6 ships. As you know, we sold 1 ship in the last financial year, and these ships operate 2 on the west coast from Kandla to Cochin, and 4 are on the east coast, which is going to Myanmar on the return, but also touching Port Blair when it's going from Chennai and Vizag. We also have more than 8,000 containers that are under utilization by us. These are all different kinds of containers, and essentially these also help us in, some of these are our own containers. Almost more than half of these are about 5,500, 6,000 containers are our own containers. So they help us in actually capturing a lot of customer business directly as well, and helps us to keep our margins afloat here. Next, please. The business in the last quarter grew at about 23%, and overall we had a marginal growth. Ships were under dry dock in the last year, and also, of course, we sold 1 ship in mid-February, so that reduced the output to some extent. Our East Coast business is of course less compared to our West Coast in terms of the ratio of roughly 60-40. The margins in this business are slightly compressed due to higher depreciation. However, it is also because the fuel prices in the last few months have been going up quite rapidly. So I would think that the overall EBITDA margins should be maintained at this level. However, we do have some dry docks also planned this year, and that might have an impact as well. We are also on the lookout for a new ship. Unfortunately, what we were planning to buy in Q4 of FY21 has not happened yet, and ship prices have really accelerated, and right now it doesn't make sense for us to acquire a new vessel at these prices, since our earnings are all in rupees, but the acquisition will be in dollars. So there could be some losses there if we do acquire ships at this price. So we are waiting for the right opportune time, and we have taken an acquisition in the Q4 of this year. Our joint ventures did quite well. These are numbers that are available in our balance sheet, as you know. So the Concord joint venture grew at about 70% in the last financial year, and definitely about a 4 times to 5 times jump in terms of profitability as well. Cold chain business grew at 40%, again starting to look positive as well with the joint venture. Now we should see more acceleration in the business. The Trans-System business degrew at about roughly 20%, mostly because the business that we do here of Toyota, that got affected to some extent. Next, please. In terms of the overall financial highlights, from a consolidated basis, Q4 was a record quarter, both in terms of standalone as well as in terms of consolidated numbers for revenues as well as PAT numbers. You know that we have an exceptional item in this quarter of roughly 3.5 crores, which includes about 90 lakhs for asset write-down for our overseas ventures, and about 2.5 crores roughly write-down for our wind power. And for the full financial year also, the overall exceptional item is about 13.9 crores versus about 9.9 crores. So without that also, we are seeing that there has been, if we include those numbers, the growth in terms of profitability is much higher. Only in terms of standalone numbers is our revenue slightly lower than last year. So our strategy of consistency in our business, because of the various businesses that we have, from our freight supply chain to seaways, is what helps us to keep looking at our profitability measures. If you see from FY16 to 21, we have grown. We have tripled our margins, as well as you've seen that our debt equity ratio has come down to extremely low levels. ROCs are a little bit flattish because of some amount of capex that happened in the last year also, but also because the first quarter was quite badly hit. And return on net worth is also moderated slightly, but we definitely are looking for a better year this year to improve some of these numbers. In terms of a dividend payout, the company has declared a 65% final dividend, which means a total dividend of about 125%. We are maintaining the almost a between 10 to 15% payout ratio, and perhaps this might also increase in the next year as we see how the conditions improve in the next financial year. Certainly, quarter one has been challenging, is partially challenging at least. April was far better than last year. Clearly, last year was a complete lockdown. May is starting to look better, but May is challenging. I'm sorry, but June is starting to look better in terms of outlook as well. I think a lot of things will depend upon how states open up and how vaccination happens. So that will build confidence in terms of the next growth opportunities as well. We are highly rated with CRISIL at AA positive, and with a positive outlook, I'm sorry. And ICRA short-term rating is at A1+. We are very strongly positioned from our social responsibility perspective from the HSE, health, safety, environment, or ESG, whichever way you look at it. And especially on the safety aspect, our Safe Safar aspect has been working very, very strongly across the country. Next slide. In this last few months, we've done some exceptional work. Our team has done exceptional work around mission critical movement of oxygen and vaccines. You can see over here we have delivered more than 8,000 tons so far of LMO to various hospitals across the country. These are, of course, using some of our customers that we are working for, but we are ensuring that our vehicles are running absolutely 24/7 as much as possible. Our vehicles, the empty vehicles, were also airlifted by the Indian Air Force to move faster. As well as we've been moving oxygen cylinders, concentrators, vaccines, and other life-saving drugs. As an organization, our thought leadership is very strong. We continuously are building other reports, etc., that are there. And of course, the award and recognition is on a regular and continuous basis. In terms of the outlook for the full year, right now we feel we can get to about 15% top line, about 20% bottom line, but we will see how things progress in the next few weeks and how things come back.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin with the question and answer round. If you have any question, you may please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom call. I would request you to start with your name and organization name followed by your question. So the first question is from Mr. Shriram. Sir, please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Shriram from Ratnatraya Capital. So my question is, how are SMEs faring at this point of time, and what is the proportion of SME for our freight division? So that is my first question. My second question is on how prepared are we to leverage the opportunity in DFC? You had mentioned that we have a JV with Concor. If you can elaborate a bit more on that, it will be helpful.
Yeah, sure. So our SME base is mostly working, say, on the LTL side of the business, which is about 33 odd % of the business. So I would say 80% is SME there. And in the FTL side of the business, we would also think there will be the reverse, possibly about 20% would be SMEs. So yes, there are some challenges with some of them, but I think it's not extreme right now. It's still things that we are observing what's happening. So there are some companies who are doing job work for companies are feeling the pressure right now because raw material prices have gone up, or they've not got the payments from different their principals, etc. But the challenge is not that deep yet, is our sense. The second is on the DFC. It's clearly something that we are going to use towards our advantage, because we don't have to own portions of the DFC to really be efficient. For us, DFC is really an element of as being a common user there. So we can use that facilities to our advantage by moving our own rakes through that network, or using the joint venture to move our rakes there. Or as well as, you can put a container at one of the locations and deliver it at the other location, and pick up by the first mile, and the last mile can be by road. So it's clearly an advantage for us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Mukesh Saraf. Sir, please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. My first question is on the supply chain.
Mukesh, can you speak a little louder, please? I can't hear you.
Yeah, is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So my first question is on the supply chain division. We still see that about auto is about 80% of this revenue, and this has been this way for last few years. So just wondering, how have we, what are we doing with respect to reducing the cyclicality, and the fact that you had highlighted about e-commerce and the other businesses. So how are we approaching this space in order to reduce our exposure to autos?
Yeah, so I think, we have to look at the business a little differently rather than just think about it as an auto-focused vertical, because the three areas in that are the consumer auto. So consumer auto did not fare as well last year, especially the two-wheeler, but with personal mobility increasing more and more, we definitely see a lot of growth opportunities there. Then the commercial side of automotive, which is the earth-moving equipment, or cranes and so on and so forth, those have done reasonably well in the last financial year as well, and even before that. So that continues. And the third is the agri auto side, which is also the tractors and combines and other such equipment that move. So that has done quite well last year. So what happens with these different areas of focus actually help us in mitigating any year that is not very good for one specific kind of automotive business. So overall, it's been quite good for us in terms of this specific management. We have grown in pace with the automotive growth rates in the country. We have a range of services that is quite unique. We have, as I said, a very low market share still in this business. So the capacity and the ability to grow is very large. And so I do not think the cyclicality is the factor that we should think about so much, but more so the fact that auto supply chains are the most mature supply chains in the country today. So that is an area that we feel that will continuously help us as we grow in that business. So yes, the issue in terms of building other businesses is also very high with our e-commerce and the warehousing and other capabilities. But notwithstanding, this is also something that we are very confident to grow going forward.
Right. And just in continuation with that, you had mentioned 10% market share. So here we are talking about the auto companies still doing it in-house, and hence the market share is low, or do we have to kind of gain market share from other players to grow? Apart from the industry growth.
It's a combination of both. It's a combination of, and the third factor is that many parts are sometimes delivered by the supplier themselves. So it's
Sure.
CIF, and in that case, they use some local companies perhaps, or some of them run through VMIs, vendor management inventory, which is that they might have warehouses close to the plants and there they supply. So the various models exist, and the share that can be acquired is not, it's from all these factors. It's our ability to sell better and create value for the customer is what will drive more growth.
Sure, sure. And my second question is again on supply chain. I mean, we're seeing a lot of new entrants in the space, especially the companies that were, so far focused only on e-commerce. So you have deliveries, you have expressways, you have a lot of these names who are now looking to pivot into this supply chain business. Have you already started seeing some bit of competition? I mean, although it's still a nascent industry, but have you started seeing now more vendors trying to get that particular contract, or that is still not the case?
No, we've not seen them specifically in these
Okay.
areas. I think the understanding there is that some of them are focused and working towards maybe some consumer sectors, and they call it supply chain. So I think the understanding what is supply chain is also missing. So let's say if the names that you use, if a delivery is saying that for a pickle manufacturer, I am picking up the material, I'm also storing that material and delivering it to customers. Is that supply chain? Not really.
Right.
So it is a lot more complex than that, just that simple order fulfillment. It
Right.
goes beyond to network planning, to design, etc. So yes, I think the maturity in this business with new entrants is very low right now, and I think it will certainly take a lot more time.
Sure, sure. Thank you for that. I'll get back in the queue.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Mr. Preet Nagar Seth. Sir, please go ahead.
Right. Thank you. Just wanted to congratulate Vinit, Ashish, and everyone at TCI. I think phenomenal numbers given the year. The question I wanted to ask was in terms of improving the margins. I think Vinit, if you could share, what your plans are, or if there's any guidance that you can give in specifically improving margins for all these three key verticals.
So I think what has happened in the last financial year is quite unique also in some ways, because the things went quite awry in the first quarter itself, and then a lot of catch up had to happen in the next few quarters, and we are seeing some of that in this quarter as well, in this financial year also. So I think the guidance that we have is typically the same that we've been maintaining for many years, for the last 1 or 2 years, and at the EBITDA level at about 4 to 5% for the freight business, for about 10 to 12% for the supply chain, about 25 to 30%, about 25 odd percent for the Seaways business. So see, I think a lot of factors are up in the air, as you would appreciate in this financial year also. So we want to be a little bit more careful in terms of how we approach the financial year, and really give you more accurate guidance perhaps a little later in the year.
Right. Because Vinit, I think over the last couple of years, I think the margins have kind of followed a similar trajectory. I understand last year was a one-off, and we're seeing that similar or lesser days being affected during this year. But in terms of your concrete plans, or let's say a 2-year horizon or 3-year horizon, do you envisage moving these margins up a bit more from where they are at present?
Yes, of course. Clearly the idea is not just to grow from a volume and value perspective, but also from the margin perspective. And those are a function of many things, a function of economies of scale in some businesses, a function of capex in some businesses like Seaways, function of market conditions in some businesses like freight, and overall, how are we able to utilize our working capital limits, all the factors that we have much better. So it's an ongoing challenge to keep increasing the margin, and I cannot really specifically tell you today that yes, we are looking at 100 basis point or 200 basis point improvement, but it is on target in terms of between a 50 to 100 basis point increase yearly.
Right. I wanted to ask if a demerger on the supply chain side is something that you're looking at given the size that it has achieved. Is that something that you would be considering over the next couple of years?
No, not really. And if we were, we won't be able to share it also, right? So, not really, because you've seen that the consolidated business has a lot of potential in terms of acting as a hedge to each other during times when one business is not doing well. So that consistency we have, the fact that we are able to use the supply chain business very effectively with a lot of clients as a key account business with large control tower kind of scenarios is something that will now start to play out more and more as we are seeing supply chains in the country maturing. So I definitely think that the story is much deeper and much longer that can go on here itself.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. We'll go back to the queue.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Pratik Kumar. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello, yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. My first question is, so I think investors have often complained about cash flow generation, and I think we had a record cash flows this year. So many congratulations for that. So how do we target, like, how do we see cash flows going up, like operating cash flows are 300 crore this year? How do we see cash flows moving forward? Would they grow in line with like profit growth if you are like projecting, or there was some one-off which had like sort of boosted like cash flows in particularly last 2 years?
The one-off was not substantial to say that yes, we did get income tax refunds, etc., which were unusually large. But overall cash flow, as you know, is a function of clearly more and more in terms of the operations that we have and how fast are we going to do the turnaround in terms of cash, the cash to cash cycle. So I think some of the external factors could help also. So last year, for example, some external factors did not help, which was that if there were bills that were pending with our clients because they said our offices are shut and we cannot process those bills, and that's also happening now, for example. But as we're moving towards e-invoicing, I'm hopeful that some of this cash flow cycle will improve. It's also a function of capex. So last year we had about 100 crores of capex. This year the capex is slightly is double in terms of our plan. And also, of course, it will depend upon if we do buy the ship or not and how it plays out towards the end of the year. But yeah, so overall, I think the cash flow would be in line with the top line and the bottom line projections that we have.
And Pratik, adding to this, our higher capex in the previous years also actually helping us now because higher depreciation is being there. So it's not only the net cash flow. If you look at the operating cash flow as well, it is also kind of have a higher number than the previous years.
Thank you, sir. I could request participant to limit to their question to one or two and wait for his or her turn in queue. The next question is from Mr. Dhanvil. Sir, please go ahead.
Hi, Vinit. Congratulations for a great year and the way you have managed the P&L and balance sheet in a very tough year. So, two questions. The first one is, if I look at the basic building blocks of our business.
I'm sorry, Dhamir, can you be a little louder, please?
Sure. Is it better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when if I look at the basic building blocks of our business and what we have done so far, we are a 14-15% ROC company, right? And we continue to invest money for growth of the tune of anywhere between 120 crore to 200 crore. So my question is, how do we move in our journey from the 14-15% ROC company to say more respectable 20% plus? Any roadmap around that would be very useful.
Sure. So, Ashish, you can put the next slide, 22, and just put it on full slide, please. So if you see that, we've been constantly adding capacity through CapEx. If you see from FY17, from 1,000 crores of capital employed to it's about 1,300 crores of capital employed, but roughly the incremental increase is almost double in terms of profitability, from 80 crores in FY17 to 150 crores in FY21. So capital employed went up by 30%, but returns went up by almost double. So the idea here is that, yes, we are looking to improve the ROC numbers, but the ROC numbers will also be important if we will not be so important if there's no growth, if there is no profitable growth. So we are also looking to ensure that we have that profitable growth over time, which means that we have to keep investing into the business constantly as well. So that would continue. I think this ROC will start moving up as some of the assets keep maturing. There is, all our businesses are close to 20% in terms of ROC. We have the others factor that brings in, which is the land and building that we have in some areas, some of the investments that we have. That is bringing down the ROC to some extent. But overall, the businesses are all very robust. If you think about the business per se, all of them are doing good in terms of their expected ROC. Certainly, they can improve and they will improve over time. But I think the factor that we have to make CapEx is essential also to our business.
Okay, got it. And one more question. So I think you called out this time, especially the cold chain business, right? And your JV with Mitsui. So, if you can.
Sorry, we lost you there. If we can.
I think he's phased out.
Dhavnil, sorry, we can't hear you. Maybe you can log back in, please. You can take the next question.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Jasdeep Walia. Sir, please go ahead.
Sir, thanks for taking my question. Sir, you seem to be very bullish on the cold chain business. Any long-term sales target you could give us, and the quantum of investment you would be making in the business for the next from next 3 to 5 years perspective?
So yes, the business has a lot of potential. I think the growth rates that you're seeing is something that we want to. It's coming out from a small base. So yes, it's only about 36 crores business. So we're looking to grow at 25 to 50% growth every year on year for the next few years. Capital employed is also low. Once we get the investment from the joint venture partner, some of that will go into CapEx as well, which is related to building cold storages as well as having the right amount of trucks. We have a combination of own plus market trucks as well, so that we are able to really optimize on the fleet. So yes, I don't have a number in terms of the CapEx plan yet, but we are in the process of building that for the next few years. But definitely a 25 to 40% top line growth for the next 3-4 years. So, Jasdeep, you're on mute.
Mr. Jasdeep, are you listening there?
Hello.
I think his
sir,
question is now finished. I think he got it.
No, sir, it's not finished. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm guessing the cold chain business is in its initial stages. So one can't expect a reasonable ROC number. But when do you think that you could start making a reasonable, let's say, company level ROC from this business? At what kind of scale?
It's too early to say. As you can see, as you yourself rightly pointed out, it's a very early stage business. is still under incubation. So give us maybe next year or so, we should be able to give you better output in terms of what's happening. But certainly the business has turned around and we are cash positive, as you can see.
Got it. And so what kind of, at what valuation is Mitsui coming in, and what kind of capabilities Mitsui is bringing in? Because I would imagine you would have all the capabilities in-house in cold chain kind of business. So what's the incremental capability is Mitsui bringing on the table?
So the business is valued at about 63.5 crores is that is the value that Mitsui has come in. And the capabilities that they bring is their global expertise in cold storages across the world, as well as their linkages with many clients globally also in this space, be it on the cold side as well as on the agri-food side. The expertise is very, very deep and global, including introducing us to many potential customers that are planning to come to India. As well as a process management also in some places. So our objective here is high quality. And when we go towards high quality, a company like Mitsui will definitely help us in building that capacity, that capabilities more and more.
Got it, sir. So can I ask one more question, or should I come back in the queue?
No problems, go ahead.
So one final question on the Seaways division. The quarter-on-quarter scale up in revenues is quite substantial. So if you could just take us through the major factors driving that kind of growth in this quarter.
So the last quarter, we had no ships in dry dock so that helped us quite a lot. And also, though we sold off one ship in the middle of the year, middle of February, middle of the quarter. But we are still able to generate a good output. Also, some sectors, the Western sector, for example, freight rates have gone up quite substantially because there is a shortage of vessels as well as containers in that area. So that has helped us also to shore up both the revenues and the margins.
Got it, sir. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I could request participant to limit to their question to 1 or 2 and wait for his or her turn in queue. The next question is from Mr. Vikram Suryavanshi. Sir, please go ahead. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, and I think, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sir, I think, can you highlight on the growth, what we can achieve in a freight business? Because earlier there was a concern about working capital management, but the kind of working capital management what we have seen is quite remarkable. Will that enable us to grow quite aggressively in freight business also? And how is the competition in this COVID time? Particularly, have we seen that smaller players are finding it very difficult to compete, and probably they may not be able to take a large part of the business on their own and can tie up with players like us? So how do you see that competitive scenario post this COVID and growth on freight business?
Ashish, can you go to the freight performance slide, please? So what we've seen that even in the pandemic period last year also, the freight business did well because we were able to start up quite fast compared to our competitors when it came to the hubs, etc. I think the core philosophy works quite well. At that point in time, we had labor that we supported. Although there was a complete lockdown, we still paid them. We ensured that they, etc. And that really helped because when we had to start up these, the labor was still there. The workforce was still there when when operations started. So it's a long-term culture issue that has an impact not just on this business but on all businesses also. That positive culture, we have not laid off any single person. We have given increments not just last year financial year but even this year. We've given ESOPs. So it's a overall culture that has an impact. And I'm just taking a slight diversion to what you mentioned about freight. But the highlight is that there is a certain amount of growth that should continue. We are looking at definitely a 10 to 15% top line growth in this business also. Barring what happens in Q1, we have some of our hub centers are now falling short in terms of capacity. So you're seeing that we are definitely building some amount of capacity with new facilities. Working capital management is critical in this business, as you rightly pointed out. So it has been flat. In fact, it has been coming down in the last 2 years because of also the mix changing. As I've also said in the past, that as the LTL mix changes, we will see definitely benefit in terms of ROCE. I was confident of actually getting to the 20% ROCE this year, but the first quarter hit was quite hard, and we were not able to get there. But the challenge for the division is that they have to cross 20% ROCE for this year at least. So we're looking forward to a good year also with the kind of traction we've seen with many of our clients. You're on mute, Vikram.
Mr. Vikram?
Okay. Yeah, I think. Thank you, sir. I think that was the question from my side.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Dipesh. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Dipesh from Equirus Securities. Thank you for taking my questions. Sir, you mentioned a robust pipeline for the integrated logistics services in your press release. So if you can elaborate on that, please, and what kind of growth you're looking at in the supply chain management business. And if you can share any warehouse capacity increase targets you have for the next 2-3 years, please.
So the aspect of complete integrated logistics is something that we've been selling for many years to our clients, and we see good traction there. I think we have to be careful in terms of what kind of businesses that we take. Some of our competitors have really gone ahead and taken a large chunk of some businesses where I would say you have to be careful also in terms of the industry, because there are some industries like the consumer durable sector where for example, the transportation rates are absolutely at the lowest possible level. There is no value addition that happens in that movement, or there is the kind of warehousing spaces that some of them have are of really poor quality. So you don't create a lot of value there for your customer, also for the business itself. So some of them might take those businesses at a loss and think that they're going to build margins. In our past experience, we've seen that some of these other logistics companies taking up these businesses are not really doing too well. So we are quite cautious when it comes to certain kind of large-scale logistics projects that we take up, because we want to see a selection of the right industry is important, and we are not really into revenue buyouts. See, many of these entities are doing revenue buyouts. They're trying to get revenues and say that we'll scale up and we'll be able to get economies of scale and so on and so forth. We've really seen that has not worked in the industry because the margins are quite low. Also, you don't really get a large chunk of the market right away. If you see the taxi market, now an Uber and Ola can really corner 50%, 60% of the market there, because that market is not as fragmented, and the way people can move there is much easier. But the logistics market, you cannot really take up 30-40% of the market share by revenue buyouts. It's not so easy. We've seen companies who have come, the likes of the Rivigos and BlackBucks, who have really struggled also because they've not really been able to understand the business and the market. So we have a robust pipeline. We've been talking to a lot of clients for the 3PL, 4PL kind of activities. I cannot really specifically share what will translate, because the time taken for the maturing of some of these contracts is much longer. And with COVID, we've seen some customers really taking a step back also. Because a lot of companies, as you know, have had cases also in their companies, and some of these things have gotten delayed. We don't have a specific warehouse growth target. I don't think that is the way that we look at the business. We look at the business more in terms of providing solutions to client. And it means that in that solutioning, we might even end up reducing the warehousing space for them and moving towards cubic capacity utilization. that also might happen. So I think not specific targets around warehousing for sure. Thank you.
Understood, sir. The second question on the cold chain business, you explained the growth targets, but can you please highlight what kind of EBITDA margins you make here or you're targeting here? And will there be any synergies with TCI Express now that they've also got to it? And or do you think that will be a competition for you going ahead?
No, the supply chain, the business is essentially 15 to 25% EBITDA margin business, depending upon the year and depending upon how the business, what contracts we get. There is no competition with TCI Express. TCI Express does only some of the last mile for very, very small packages, which TCI Cold Chain does not do. So really speaking, no competition there.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Krupa Shankar. Sir, please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I have two questions. The first one is on the supply chain business. Just wanted to understand on the e-commerce part of the supply chain business. So are you targeting or giving services to the top two, or is it more towards the long tail of e-commerce? And are the services limited to only fulfillment centers, or is there anything like line haul and last mile, which have also been taken over in the last 1 year?
So yes, we are doing companies, and yes, we are doing work with the top companies as well as some of the other companies where we're running e-commerce lines for them, which is a fulfillment lines from the existing warehouses. Because as you've seen that a lot of companies are also changing their since retail stores are shut, they're moving more and more towards omni-channel, and that's where we've been able to service them. We do provide some middle mile kind of services, and including in some cases some amount of last mile also, where it is for little bulkier products, not necessarily for the small packages, etc. And yes, when the products come to the warehouses, we do a lot of value add, which could be checking the products, some amount of tagging, kitting, etc., as well as returns management, because as you know, e-commerce also has a large returns management aspect, and we do manage that completely as well for many clients.
So just to follow up on that, so you see e-commerce as the second largest vertical, perhaps in the supply chain business for the next 3 years. Is that good possible?
I would call it as retail. I think supply chain, I would not call e-commerce specifically, because retail is a better terminology since it is such an evolving business. Yes, I would think retail is amongst the top 3 segments in our supply chain business.
And the second question was on the CVS business. Just wanted to understand here. We've seen, of course, the shipping freight rates have firmed up, and we've seen a good bit of increase. But in the last year, we had seen that there was oversupply in the market, and with which the freight rates were fairly competitive. Now, we do have plans to add new at the end of this year, and again, there's this talk of Contour, also re-looking at the coastal spring lines. Do you see that overall, given that you have also stated that the acquisition price of a ship can go up, do you see the ROCs perhaps can come down in this space, or margins can be impacted with the shipping freight rates collapsing?
So, freight rates actually, there was not overcapacity in the last year. That was only in I think 2019-20, there was a bit of overcapacity. Also in the first quarter, we had decent movement happening because the transport was shut. So it did, as you've seen, the business still grew at about 7% in the last financial year. And freight rates have actually moved up quite rapidly on the western coast as well as on the eastern coast. So we are seeing good traction there. So really, and maybe it's a little slowdown now, but it's not going to necessarily be slow over the full year is our estimate. Also clearly, because fuel prices are also on the higher side, That would reflect into higher container pricing as well. Yes, the price of a new ship will have an impact on ROC, and also when the ship comes in and when we are able to deploy it and how fast we are able to optimally utilize it will have an impact on ROC for sure. So yes, that remains to be seen in terms of the acquisition price.
Thank you, sir. And all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Srinivas. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Vinit. Hi, Ashish.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Srinivas.
Yeah, hi. Congrats on finishing the year quite well. I just brought a question on this COVID. Now, when you compare what is happening today and look at what happened last year, can you give some color on how it is similar or different with respect to business in each of the verticals? Well, last year, the maximum impact was felt in supply chain and followed by freight and seaways was less disrupted. Broadly, what kind of trends are you seeing, say, in May and as we speak, compared to this thing? And in the guidance that you mentioned of 15%, broadly, what kind of normalization path have you assumed with respect to COVID? Is it like things getting back to normal by end of June, or like what kind of buffer have you built into the guidance that you?
So this time around, there is no disruption in the supply chains to a great extent, which means that last time everything had been shut completely. So that had an impact on factories and so on and so forth. Our freight business also didn't do too well in the first quarter last year.
Yeah.
So I think this year, because the lockdowns have been more gradual and more state specific, we are seeing a little bit more uncertainty in terms of when things will open up. However, we do have plans from, let's say, the auto companies that some of them already started opening up in this week, and in the next week also they are all opening up next month as well. So the visibility is, though it's uncertain when they'll open up, but at least some of the larger entities, the visibility is slightly better as we are seeing. Some amount of MSMEs will certainly have a bit of a struggle. If the government spending continues the way that it did in the first half of the year, we should see that some of the projects will get completed or projects will start moving where machinery and other equipment is needed. So that will help our freight business as well. We do see traction, of course, with the seaways business as well as with the rail business. So that should pick up. So normalization for us would mean that perhaps more in terms of closer to the festival season, typically after August, when we can see more movement. Typically also, even during the year, these are some slow months anyways, because of post year end, as well as because of the monsoons, etc. But August onwards, things do start picking up, and also with vaccination accelerating, hopefully the next few weeks, we should see more consumer confidence coming up, and hence consumer confidence building up, and hence growth potentially from August, September onwards.
Mr. Srinivas, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I think I went on mute and I was not able to unmute. So Vinit, if I understood it correctly, the impact this time is relatively moderate compared to last year across all the segments, and then our assumption is that in 2-3 months or around the beginning of festive season, things will get back to normal. That's
yeah.
Okay. And then other one was, you mentioned in your opening comment that you may have to take some more write-offs in some, I think, seaways or some segment, but could you just elaborate? I couldn't quite understand what you meant by that.
No. We don't have any write-offs planned. Whatever had to be done has been done already in our wind power or in the other overseas businesses.
Okay. Got it. Thanks again, and I wish you best health and luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Pradeep Kumar, as he was disconnected previously. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity again. Sir, I just want further clarification. Your sister company TCI Express in the conference call were like quite aggressively talking about a new segment C2C Express and cold chain. Also, they gave some targets also of 500 crore revenue in cold chain, which seemed like very aggressive number. And then there was a lot of discussion around C2C Express. I believe that C2C Express is something we also do, where they mentioned about milk run from manufacturers to customers. So are our business and their business starting to coincide and will start competing with each other, or they are doing very different? Or
No, it's very different. I think the milk run that happens for us is more on the inbound side. For Express, it could be some on the outbound side. So really speaking, there is no really any kind of correlation in that. And these are separate segments. We as a group think about a lot of opportunities in the logistics space, and sometimes they might seem that they are coincidental to each other. But in reality, there is a niche that exists in many of these spaces, which we are able to, because we have a customer orientation, we are able to pick up many of those things.
And what about cold chain? Because they've also guided, seems we are also thinking about very aggressive numbers, but they also seem to have at least told about very aggressive numbers. To Street.
No, as I explained, also it's more on the last mile side and also on some of the smaller packages side. Again, and there could be some movement. There's some work that could happen on the food delivery and the last mile of that also, perhaps. But I cannot comment on that from that company's perspective. But certainly there is potential in even the last mile also for small packages in cold chain. You've seen today also, for example, if you're ordering something like chocolates, that's coming in a small box today with in a cold setup. So like this, that's a very small last mile kind of activity.
Okay. One question on your short-term borrowings this quarter. This by year end had fallen very sharply. So is this a permanent thing, or is this some general squeeze to vendors? Yeah.
So,
as a result, our total debt has also fallen.
I would take this question. So, Prateek, there is no kind of a squeeze, in fact, in the vendors. We have very vendor-friendly policy in terms of payments and other kind of treatments. Vendor payment days is only 20 days, while some of the competitors have more than 50 or 60 kind of numbers. This is because of that the extra cash flow was there, and we are able to realize our debtors quite sharply. And so this is a kind of a temporary things. As the business would grow further, this would kind of reach to some 50-60% of utilization level.
Okay, and one last question, sir, on COVID impact. Just an indicative thing. Based on general what we hear from industry, most of the businesses are down 20 to 30% versus March levels or even higher. So that would be reflection for logistics industry also, like around 30% decline from March quarter levels, or revenues would be for this. Just indicative number directionally.
See, March is anyways highest quarter for the logistics business throughout the country, including over here as well, for us as well. So, and then the first quarter of the year is the weakest quarter generally as well. So, and if you see in a normal circumstance also, the fall is around 20-25%. So perhaps because of the lockdowns, etc., it might be a little bit more. But I think that could be a possible anticipated number for the industry as a whole. I cannot specifically comment about us.
Sure, sir. I'll get back to the queue. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Romit Nagpal. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Romit, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening. I just wanted to check. You mentioned that the ship capex is going to happen towards the end of the year. The balance 140 odd crore capex, is it expected to be front loaded or is it more towards the 22-23 numbers?
So the hub centers, etc., are under construction, and that construction period is over time. Obviously, it doesn't happen right away. So over the course of the year, we'll see some of that capex incurring. The trucks and the rakes, as we are expecting the rake possibly in Q1, and some trucks acquisition might happen in Q2. So some of it will get, I guess, partially front loaded. Yeah, so it's more or less happening throughout the year versus any front loading specifically.
Okay. What I really wanted to actually also get at is that you're projecting about a 15% growth for the coming year. Does it factor in this kind of a capex or not really?
See, some of our capex has more long-term orientation, except for the ship, which is a direct correlation in terms of output, capex to output. That is anyways expected in Q4. So the impact of that is much lesser on the overall targets for 15%. So this is more in terms of the existing capital that we have employed. We should be able to grow at 10-15%.
Okay, thanks a lot. That's all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Nitin Agarwal. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Vineet. Hi, Ashish. This is Nitin Agarwal from the Leeds Wealth Limited. First of all, congratulations for your Q4 numbers and thank you for this opportunity. Yeah. So my first question is regarding, you have guided the CapEx plan for the FY22. So how would you plan to finance your CapEx? Because of what I have seen in this quarter, you have reduced your debt aggressively. So would it be that maintainable in the future?
Yes, of course. I mean, reducing the debt means that we have capacity to borrow more. Also, the cash generation is quite high also with the profitability. So overall, we would think that about half of this will get financed through debt and half of it through internal accruals. So we should not have any problems with that.
Thank you so much, Vineet.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Alok. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, Alok, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So congratulations firstly on the great set of numbers. Sir, just I had one question. How has been the moment in terms of activity in April? Because if we see a lot of these indicators, it's pointing that April has been a little on the weaker side in terms of logistics activity, probably COVID second wave. So how it's been for us? That is number one. And also, how has the freight rates movement been? Because there is one association which gives the freight indicators, but ground level, it suggests that the freight rate has not come off so much also in April as what the media articles are suggesting.
So April, I would think, has been more on the normal side as it is usually there, because it's a typical fall after March that happens. And but then there were, of course, issues that started in the middle of April with lockdowns and cases increasing. So that did have an impact to some extent. Now, as I said earlier, it's not been a complete lockdown. I think this time the government has not really distinguished so much, except for some big cities, between essentials and non-essentials. So regular movement has happened from supply chain perspective, from the regular supply chains of the country. So I would say